Right. Good evening, everyone. It looks like we're live now. Facebook Live official. A few minutes late, nothing too crazy, but wanted to introduce somebody that I had a chance to talk to. Once again, this is Kyle Wolf with ThinkTomorrow, and Spike Cohen is the VP nominee for the Libertarian Party, alongside with Dr. Jo Jorgensen, who I had the luxury, I would say, to interview on Saturday. Hoping the same goes well today, and look forward to talking to Spike.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, certainly, Spike. And one of the things, I just want to get things started right away. I know we're going to be cognizant of each other's time, right? Is I definitely wanted to get to know you personally, because I think that's important. You know, you're not just voting for a politician, just another number, right? I think you're voting for a person and a personality. Love to hear about yourself and perhaps some of the things that you believe in and some of the values you've kind of grown up to learn.
Sure, absolutely. So, folks, for those who don't know me, my name is Spike Cohen. I started a web design company in 1999 when I was in my teens. I grew that into a fairly successful company. And then 3 years ago, I decided to retire from owning my business so that I could focus my life on my real passion, which is spreading the message of liberty to a public that often hasn't heard of ideas like self-ownership and non-aggression. And they've really just heard bad Republican and Democrat ideas, and they've been told that that's the entire spectrum of the political thought. And so that is my passion in injecting libertarian ideas into the conversation and trying to change the cultural conversation away from statism and towards anti-authoritarianism and libertarianism. And that culminated in my becoming the host of My Fellow Americans, the co-host of the Muddy Waters of Freedom, and the co-owner of Muddy Waters Media. And 6 months ago, I decided to run for the Libertarian Party nomination for vice president. In the past 6 months, I have done everything from media appearances to college campus tours to knocking on doors in housing projects in marginalized communities, going to Republican and Democrat events to poach their supporters from them, and basically to do what I've been doing with Muddy Waters for many years, which is spreading the message of liberty far and wide and wherever I could. And based on the strength of that, the delegates of the Libertarian Party saw fit to nominate me as their VP candidate. And so that's now what I'm doing as the VP candidate for the Libertarian Party for 2020.
And here we are today on a Tuesday. No, that's good to hear. And it seems like you're really passionate about liberty, right, and politics.
Yes.
And I guess, and it didn't seem like you may have had that previously in your life, and maybe it's something that you've always wanted to do, and now you're at this point in your life, and it's really interesting to hear your passion and why you want to be a libertarian and specifically run as VP, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I asked Dr. Jorgensen that I would like to ask you is, I guess, like, what are some of the values and some of the things that you notice about libertarians?
So libertarianism, because I get asked this in many different ways, and usually it all boils down to, what do libertarians think? And as libertarians, we tend to want to give all the answers at once and, give several hours worth of answers. But basically, the way that I boil it down is very simple. Libertarians believe that you own yourself, your life, your body, your labor, and the product of your labor, which is your property. And we believe that you exclusively enjoy the right to ownership of this, that you can keep or give or sell or rent as you see fit, because it inherently belongs to you. And that whenever anyone tries to take from you or you try to take from someone else, that is called an act of aggression. And we believe that's wrong, not just for moral reasons, that you shouldn't harm people or take their things. You shouldn't take their life. You shouldn't take from their body. You shouldn't take from their labor or their property or anything without their consent. Not only is it morally wrong to do that, but it also doesn't work. If I can take from you and everyone else that's watching this as I see fit, then I'm not going to be a good steward of what I've taken, because I can just take more whenever I want. I don't have to actually earn or provide any value to anyone in exchange for things. I can just take. I can just say, this is mine, give it to me, and I'm not going to be a good steward of that. And you're not going to be a good steward of what you have, because I can come and take it from you at any time. And what have the Republicans and Democrats done but imposed a system on us whereby they choose to take from us as they see fit for whatever reasons they see fit. And that's why their solutions, the things that they've imposed upon us, more often than not lead to bad, harmful, inequitable, and abusive outcomes. And we as libertarians believe that if we apply concepts of self-ownership and non-aggression and voluntary solutions and human action within the market to every problem that we face, and remove the Republicans and Democrats' bad, centrally planned, arbitrarily designed, crony-friendly ideas, that we will have better outcomes.
Interesting take on that one, for sure. And one of the things that we have seen, especially in the environment that we're in, a little kind of shift here, right? is 2020, right? I think it's a crazy year.
Just throw it away. Just throw this year away. Yeah.
I mean, you got to start off with rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. I mean, that was tragic. Awful. And then COVID happened. Markets went to 17K on the Dow, jump up to what we at 27,000 today.
Something like that. Yeah.
Pretty phenomenal to see the consumer confidence that we're having in this environment. And now, with the instability of what's going on and along
the reaction to the police brutality, all of that, the murder hornets. Supposedly Yellowstone's got some minor earthquakes happening around it. This is an interesting year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So with that said, Spike, with 2020, the way we've had it and the way it's kind of transcended in just 6 months, right? We're only halfway through the year. I guess if you were in office right now, if you were Vice President Pence, if you were in his shoes as a vice president, how would you have handled 2020? Are there anything that you would have done differently?
Oh, obviously. Yeah, definitely. So let's look at the I guess the three biggest things that have happened this year, at least in my opinion. One has been the pandemic. And then the reaction to the pandemic, which was the government lockdowns. And then the other thing that's happened is just this boiling over of police brutality, which frankly has been something that's been going on for decades. You could argue over a century. But the just sort of the boiling over that's happened as a result, which obviously, I think that tensions have been so flared from the pandemic and the lockdowns that it just naturally led to something being the catalyst that set everything off and created the unrest that we're seeing now. So here's how, as vice president, obviously, I'm more of a support to the president. I'm an advisor to the president. I'm the tie-breaking vote in the Senate if there is a tie in the Senate, and I preside over the Senate. And then most of my role is largely that of a bully pulpit. But as vice president, and I guess what's more important is as our administration, the way we would have handled this is the pandemic wouldn't have happened the way that it happened, because long before it had happened, back when we were sworn in, January of 2017, one of the first things we would have done is gotten rid of some of the ridiculous regulations that are in place that have made, in the best of times, made healthcare harder to access and more expensive, and in the worst of times have led to the terrible things that we've seen. One perfect example of this is the reason why it took us so long to realize that there were a lot of infections here is because it was illegal to test for COVID-19 for the first 6 to 8 weeks of the outbreak because of some ridiculous CDC regulation that says that in order to test for a new virus, a novel virus, even though making these test kits is apparently very easy if you know how to do such a thing, you had to apply. What's that?
It looks like a Q-tip, the COVID.
Yeah, it's a swab, and the kit itself is. I don't pretend to know how to do it, but it's apparently, if you know how to do such a thing, it's pretty easy to do. And so it's like it's what they do all day long. And so what happened was when patients started coming to doctors like Dr. Helen Chu at the University of Washington in Seattle and other doctors in Dallas and Boston and California, and they were going to their doctor and saying, "Doctor, I'm feeling sick. I was in Wuhan, China. I have symptoms that sound similar to this coronavirus thing I'm hearing on TV, and I'd like to get tested." Those doctors thankfully put their Hippocratic oath above that ridiculous regulation and illegally tested for COVID-19. And a few of them came back positive. And they immediately went to the CDC and said, "Listen, it's here now. It's too late to try to stop it from coming here. We need to start moving towards mass testing and contain this thing." And the CDC's initial response to that was to say, destroy all those test results, tell no one, including the patients, do not treat them, just pretend you never did any of this. Thankfully, those doctors again put their Hippocratic oath above the regulations. And in a pretty astounding display of civil disobedience, they released those results to the public. And that civil disobedience forced the CDC's hand to allow provisional testing. So you still have to apply for the approval to do it, but you can already start testing ahead of time as long as you report the results to the government. And there's literally dozens of examples of how the government boot on the neck of the healthcare sector and on the people in general in their trying to solve problems that are often imposed upon them by government makes things worse. And this is just one of many examples. That would have already been out of the way so that once COVID-19 came here, they would have been able to contain it right off the bat. And there still would have been cases, and there would have been more that would have more cases that would have happened because it is somewhat easy to spread as a disease. But it wouldn't be like it is now, where it went almost undetected for weeks at a time when it really could have been contained, like they've done in South Korea and Taiwan and other places where it hasn't been nearly the pandemic that it has been here. And so as a result of that, we wouldn't have had to have all these crazy lockdowns. Some states may have chosen to not allow some of the larger gatherings and stuff like that, but nothing like we're seeing right now. That wouldn't have happened. Another thing that we would have done is we would have ended qualified immunity. We would, for the police brutality stuff, we would have ended qualified immunity. We would have ended the 1033 military surplus program. We would have put intense pressure on the states to revise their code of conduct with people that they're detaining and interrogating, so that they don't lead to the terrible outcomes that we're seeing now. We would have used the Justice Department to go after abusive individual officers and police departments with a history of abuse. We would have ended the civil asset forfeiture program, where police departments and the federal government steal from suspects who haven't even been tried yet, take everything they own. And then if those suspects are found not guilty, even though they can't even afford a defense because everything was taken from them, they then have to sue the government to get their stuff back. And if you look at all of the civil asset forfeiture that's happening and compare it to all of the private sector burglary, civil asset forfeiture actually steals more from the American people than just people breaking into people's homes and pickpockets and everything else, all of the reported burglary that happens. So easily, not even including taxation, the biggest thieves in this country are the federal and state governments. That program would have ended. So the three major things that would have happened, that happened this year, would have already been stopped long ago, or at least made a lot less likely to happen by actions that we would have taken at the executive level and pressure that we would have put on Congress to make changes at the legislative level.
Right, right. And just a quick follow-up. You mentioned a lot there, right? It was a lot of good content. No, it's good though. It's good. It's good to digest, and hopefully the viewers acknowledge it and understand what you're coming from and things like that. But one of the things, quick follow-up on that I've seen all over social media, I think we all have, quite frankly, is this whole notion of defund the police, right? I'm curious to see your thoughts on that. I know this wasn't something that I had kind of thought of. It was just a quick follow-up on you, but I personally would rather see us reinvest and put more money for training, and but I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are on the defund the police movement.
I am not against defunding the police. I am against, well, here's the thing. We're going to defund the police at the federal level because federal involvement in policing has made it worse. Because whenever the federal government says, we're going to get involved and we're going to throw more money at it, but we'll improve the oversight, what that really means is we're going to turn it into a major slush fund and create a crony market around us that's going to constantly feed us new legislation to sign and pass in exchange for keeping us in office by giving donations to our campaign and set up super PACs to fund our campaigns, so that we don't have to actually take our message to the people. We can just take it straight to the cronies and skip line and get elected. And as a result, it leads again to these terrible, harmful, inequitable, and abusive outcomes. And so a perfect example of this is all of these ideas of, the federal government's going to get involved and we're going to give money to this, but there's going to be oversight. We're going to have oversight of the police. It has created the police to prison industrial complex. It has led to the war on drugs. It has led to the war on sex work. It has led to increasingly disproportionate harm against communities of color, gender and sexual minorities, religious and ethnic minorities, the poor, the homeless, immigrants, all of the various marginalized communities, and really all communities at this point, but especially those marginalized communities. All of that has happened as a result of the federal government writing endless billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars a year to these police stations. So I agree with defunding it at the federal level, put it back in the states and the cities where the 10th Amendment says it should be, and put it back to them, and allow individual communities to decide, do we want police or do we want first responders for specific situations and maybe some security forces? Do we want to switch to a system of community policing and restorative justice, or do we want to keep the more traditional form of government policing, but have some changes to the way that they interact with the public and retrain them for being more sensitive? Although I'm not sure how much training is needed to not kneel on people's necks and murder them, or not shoot up people's homes during an. Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot we talk about training. A lot of it's not training. A lot of it is that because of qualified immunity, they know that they can get away with it, that they'll never get sued, they'll never get in trouble. Between their police union contracts and qualified immunity, they can do whatever they want. They know it. And I think if they just knew they couldn't do whatever they wanted, that they'd get in every bit as much trouble as any of us would if we did those kinds of things, that a lot of that would stop. We don't have to train anyone that you can't break into Breonna Taylor's home and murder her. at 3 a.m. to deliver a no-knock raid on someone who's already in police custody and who never lived in that home. You don't need to tell them don't kneel on a man's neck while he screams and begs for you and says that he can't breathe, and while a crowd gathers around you and begs you to stop murdering him in front of them. That's not a training thing. That's an accountability thing. So defund the police, I leave that up to, the individual cities and states and municipalities. But from the federal level, absolutely defund it.
Interesting take. I'm glad you had addressed that there. And one of the questions, I think Ryan actually read my mind. One of the ones that I had kind of prepared for you was, something along this line is, what is your relationship with Jo like? And quite simply, I mean, instead of putting my fluff in, what is it like?
So I've known Jo for all of 7 months now. We actually haven't known each other a very long time, but our relationship so far has been great. We were paired by the delegates, so the way our system works is they choose the presidential candidate and then the vice presidential candidate, and so they chose her, and then they chose me. We weren't running together as running mates, and so after we got paired together, I said, well, I know Jo fairly well, but let me go look at her issues page and talk with her and see where we stand on where we may agree or disagree on some of the finer points and stuff. And there's not a lot we disagree on. And even the things that I'd say we disagree on are really more marginal things. And it's more degrees of how something should be handled, more so than a diametric opposition on any. As far as I know, there's nothing we're diametrically opposed on. And on any of the major things, we're of a shared mind. So it has been really great from that standpoint. Jo's an amazing person. And I mean, if you, especially comparing her to your other choices, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, you have two old buffoons who have had a hand in exactly the problems that we're facing right now. I mean, Joe Biden helped co-write most of these laws that are being used to allow police to brutalize our communities and treat our neighborhoods like war zones and our neighbors and friends and loved ones like enemy combatants. He's the one who signed that stuff. He's the one who co-sponsored that stuff and co-wrote that stuff. And Donald Trump has been encouraging police brutality for as long as he's been in the public eye. He's well known for it. So these are the people that, are saying that they're going to give you better ideas. And now, neither one of them can form a coherent sentence between the two of them. And then here you have this Clemson University senior lecturer and psychologist who is able to, very articulately break down things and explain things, in contrast to these two old buffoons with credible rape accusations against them. And then, you contrast me with Mike Pence and whoever has the misfortune of being paired as Joe Biden's running mate. I think that, if we're able to get on that debate stage, which I think we'll be able to do, I think we have at least even chances of winning this thing.
Absolutely. And that was one of the questions I asked Dr. Jo Jorgensen, and she was comfortable saying that she would go on a debate stage if I set it up with Think Tomorrow with Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
And if you can do a similar thing with the VP,
I was just going to ask that with you, Pence, and whomever.
Easily.
Biden
easily.
That day, I don't know.
It won't be me that you'll be having a hard time setting that up with.
I'm glad you're in on it. And Spike, I appreciate the time. I know we're getting close to time here. Yep. I know you have another show you're running at 8. Do you want to tell our audience about that show?
Yeah, it's the Muddy Waters of Freedom. It's Tuesdays at 8, and it is a show that I do with my co-host, Matt Wright. And we parse through the week's news and present the libertarian angle to those news and, provide a lot of commentary and things like that. And then on Wednesdays, I have my show, My Fellow Americans, which is a little bit more of a topical show. I have guests come on and things like that. Recently, I've been doing a lot of AMAs because I am the nominee and, to give a few, give people a chance to talk to me directly and things like that. But this tomorrow, I actually have two guests, Antonia Okafor Cover and Marshall Tig Davis. And we're going to talk about gun rights and the police brutality and civil liberties and self-protection and things like that. So that'll be good. But I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to you and your audience. If you guys would like to find out more, please go to joj2020.com. We'd love to have a donation if you are able to do so. We'd love you to share our content on social media. If you look for Jo Jorgensen or Spike Cohen on social media, you'll find us. For me on Twitter, I'm at Real Spike Cohen, and on Facebook, I'm just Spike Cohen. If you search for me on Facebook, or the address is facebook.com/literally Spike Cohen. And we look forward to having your support. Jo and I are trying to create a freer and safer and healthier and happier society that you can live in, and that your loved ones and your children can have a brighter future. We're going to end the wars. We are going to bring the troops home. We are going to end the drug war. We are going to end the war on sex work. We're going to abolish the ATF and the DEA. We're going to get rid of the IRS so that you can keep the thousands of dollars they steal from you every year. We're going to move to sound banking and away from the Federal Reserve so that your money won't lose value every single day. We will remove the bureaucrats and the cronies and the politicians from DC that are involved in your healthcare and your education and every other aspect of your life, and put the decision making back with you and with the people that you're getting those services from, the teachers, the doctors, and so forth, so that you can live a freer and happier and healthier life. And with your support, Jo Jorgensen and I will take that message and our libertarian, our common sense libertarian solutions all the way to the White House.
Wow, that is a strong message, Spike, and much more articulate than I think Joe Biden would say it.
I hope so. Goodness.
Give you some credit there. Well, Spike, it was a pleasure having you on. And for all of your followers, feel free to check us out. Think Tomorrow. We just started about 3 months ago. And, our main message I failed to mention, is that we're an objective media company. So we're happy to have Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, whomever you want to be. We'd love to have other people come on our show, even everyday people. It seems like Chris wants to get involved. Let's get this going. But just having fun, and politics can be fun. It doesn't have to be very hostile, right? The way it's been lately.
It does not. No. The Republicans and Democrats have created a situation where they have to use hostility and fear in order to keep you distracted from the fact that if you just step back and take a look at it, you can see that they have exclusively run this thing for the better part of 150 some odd years now. They're the ones who created this problem, and you're never going to get a solution from them. But if they keep everyone at each other's throats with, Joe Biden sucks, no, Trump sucks worse, and you're all arguing over which one sucks the worst, instead of stepping back and going, oh, wait, all these people suck. Why are we arguing with each other? Let's go find someone who has actual solutions for us. But that's why the climate is like this. And we are actively opposed to this climate and want to move towards one that is based on solutions and benefiting you and your loved ones and your communities.
Awesome. Spike, great message. Great having you on. And
great being on, man.
Yeah, have an awesome night. Hopefully we can get you on again. I mean, going closer to the election in November, it seemed we got some pretty good headway today. And I think people want to hear your message and more often.
Absolutely, man. And everyone who's watching this, please hit that like button for Think Tomorrow and come join me at 8 over on Muddy Waters Media. I'll be sharing it on all my social media, and come join us for the Muddy Waters of Freedom. Thank you guys again for having me. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much.
Have a great night.